I got a gift, so I'm doing okay with the car, and I'm
This car is now coming up to its 5 years of ownership. We bought this in, if memory serves, about July of 2017. So we're now standing here in April. So we're a few months away from completing its 5th year anniversary. A lot of driving has happened, sir. The car has served as the main sort of workhorse for the family, primarily driven by my father and I. So this has had a chance to put quite a lot of mileage on its system now. We've had the chance to drive it extensively in the city, of course, and more importantly, on the highways. Fair deal of road experience with this car now. We've done about 50,000 plus kilometers. When we got this vehicle, Skoda was at the time, as part of its marketing or rebranding, whatever you want to call it, they were offering the 5-year service package bundled on with the car. What we ended up getting was a brand new car with a 5-year guaranteed service warranty where we didn't have to pay anything. And the last service on this car, we're sitting here speaking in April of 2022. So the last service on this car was September in 21, and I had to look at the invoice before meeting with you today, and we didn't pay anything. This car has had basically a service a year. That's sort of the service interval, because if I remember correctly, it's 15,000 kilometers or 1 year, whichever is earlier. And given our driving, I think we've managed less than 15,000 kilometers in any given calendar year. So we've, on an annual basis, we've gone ahead and regularly serviced our vehicles with the company. This car hasn't been to any other third-party mechanic or garage. It's only ever been to a company-authorized service center through their dealer network, and it's been a very good experience. There was an issue once I had here with the switches on the steering wheel. It had gotten loose. I think one of the plastic clips that holds it together may have broken. So there was play here on this switch, and we had that replaced. Other than that, I don't think we had to get anything replaced in these 5 years. And again, that was a zero cost replacement. We didn't pay anything for that. They just did it. And of course, each service covers all your various filters that need to be checked: the pollen filter, the air filter, the oil filter, the fairly standard services that all cars. Given the 5 years of ownership, if I look back at how the car behaved and performed when we got it, against the way it behaves and performs and drives now, I can conclusively say there's not been any qualitative change in the car's behavior and dynamics. That's a big plus. And I think that sort of ties in to the whole service schedule, as well as the service packages that Skoda offers, or at least was offering when I bought the car. But all of that coupled together has ensured that this car is well serviced, is well looked after, and that's paid dividends in the fact that the car's driving capabilities have not been diminished in any way whatsoever over the years. Cars tend to get noisier and squeakier as the years progress. So in this car, there is one tiny little minor squeak somewhere in the back seat. I notice that sometimes. It's very minute. It's certainly nothing that bothers me, and it goes away entirely if there's even one person sitting in the rear. Other than that one tiny little squeak, this car has no other discernible noise whatsoever. In terms of just regular driving experience, I've never had any kind of audible problem with this car. But when you're driving at high speeds or doing any sort of spirited driving, then of course you will hear the engine far more. The panel fitment quality, the quality of the plastics have held up in the years. You know, there's not been any kind of degeneration of the leather on the steering wheel. I've not had any discoloration on the panel here. There's been no new panel gaps, there's been no rattling, there's been no squeaking. So I think the car has been made to a very high and quality standard. So I have no complaints on the interiors of the car. The car to begin with just has, as they say, it has good bones. If the car has good bones to begin with, if its bone structure is good, then you can look after it and it will return that love that you lavish on the car. I do mean it when I say that this car has really given us good value over the years in terms of both driving pleasure and just utility, sheer utility as well. The DSG gearbox very intuitively responds to your style of driving. So right now, for example, I'm speaking with you, so I've got a very light foot and the car senses this, and I guess whatever algorithm they've programmed into it, its upshifts and downshifts are completely smooth, gentle, not aggressive at all. But when I am trying to push the car, when I am heavier with my foot, I see the car respond to that. So it holds the gears for longer, it downshifts more aggressively. And this, by the way, is just in the regular drive mode. This is not me engaging sport mode. So the car, even in drive mode, has the, I use the word loosely, intelligence to be able to figure out how you're trying to drive it. So when you are sort of just sedately driving in the city, or even on the highway for that matter, and the car senses that, the gear shifts are smooth and gentle accordingly, and that helps sort of extend your mileage. I recall from our discussion 5 years ago, the concerns around DSG that we were talking about. In fact, a lot of your subscribers had asked me questions on that first original video as well about my DSG experience. Some of them gave doomsday predictions that whilst I was in my honeymoon period, everything was good. Within a couple of years, I was going to be, having tears of blood by the DSG experience that was going to come my way. Now, I'm sorry to let those people down, but I will humbly submit that my DSG has performed really well. I've never had any issues with this DSG gearbox. And it's been driven for a fair number of kilometers. I said, 50,000 kilometers now. And I've never had any trouble whatsoever from this DSG gearbox. I would never shut the car off immediately after any spirited driving. The DSG gearbox has been working really hard if you're driving the car spiritedly, and if you immediately turn it off, I read this somewhere, so I don't know how accurate I am, that if you were to then shut it off, all that heat sort of gets trapped in the DSG gearbox and can cause issues over time. But if you leave the car running for a minute or two, let it cool and calm down, that heat dissipates from the DSG gearbox, and therefore it makes it safer for the car to cool down and sort of rest. But to me, this sounded like sound advice in general, so I have followed that. Has that contributed to the longevity of this DSG gearbox? Maybe, maybe not, but that's just been my experience. This car has driven extensively in the city and a fair bit on the highway as well. I think on the city, the fact that it's got an automatic gearbox has made all the difference. The highway experience, I think, is where this car shines, truly. At the end of the day, it's a diesel vehicle. It's a heavy vehicle in comparison to its petrol counterpart. So it doesn't have that same degree of zippiness, if you want to call it that, within the city. But of course, the torque is very helpful. But if you're talking about general city traffic, if you want to just zip around in the neighborhood, you'll find that driving a diesel vehicle, particularly this vehicle, a sedan, requires a slightly more sure-footed approach. You can't, it's not a Santro in that sense, if I could use that as an example or as a benchmark, that you can just go zipping through traffic. You've got to be more mindful about the maneuvers you're making, because while you've got the torque on tap, at the end of the day, it's a heavier vehicle. If you want to call these cons, I guess you could, but it's these very features that actually make it a very good experience on the highway. So the fact that it's a heavier vehicle, the fact that it's very sure-footed, and the fact that you've got all this torque really makes the car shine on a highway. So very, very recently, I just drove this car last week, for example, to Dehradun. This car was just completely smooth as butter. I was even able to use the cruise control function on the car because the roads are massive and there wasn't a lot of traffic, and it was a great mile muncher. We were able to just we were able to cover, I think, about 270 kilometers in about 4.5 hours. The car continues to give me a sense of confidence when I'm driving it at high speeds or moderate high speeds on the highway. I've had to make emergency braking maneuvers. I've had to make emergency lane change maneuvers while at high speed on highways, and this car has never once let me down. So I think in a nutshell, I'd say this is a competent city car, but it's a stellar highway car. I haven't taken it beyond about 140, 150, and when I was at that speed, I know that I felt quite confident in the car. At no point did I feel the car was shaking or the car was unsure or skittish. It was always sure-footed and planted. And the only reason that I would have not taken it beyond that is simply because of the tacho. This is a diesel vehicle. It can accelerate very quickly to a speed, but it doesn't go to very high speeds. That's just, again, that's the nature of the beast here. So I think I would have wanted to keep my tacho sort of shy of 35 or 4,000 RPM. So I probably didn't go too far ahead of that. Braking maneuver was a straight line braking maneuver. I had to decelerate the car rapidly, pun intended, I suppose. And the car, it broke in a straight line. It did not waver. The ABS kicked in because I believe there was some gravel on the road. I could hear the wheels redistributing the sort of brake force between the wheels to ensure there was no lockup. The steering held firm, and the car performed. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything more. On the highway, I can tell you because I just came off a long drive, as I mentioned earlier. So it just gave me somewhere between 20 and 22 kilometers to the liter on the highway. And so I think that is quite good. The city driving, depending on your mileage and the way you drive the car, could vary. But I'd say anywhere between 16 to about 19 is not unusual for this car. I said this then, I'll say it again. This car should have disc brakes on all 4 brakes, and as far as I know, even today, Skoda does not offer the Rapid with all 4 disc brakes, front and rear, which is a travesty. So if there's one thing, if Skoda is hearing me, if they're watching this video, and I sure hope they do, please install disc brakes throughout the car on all 4 wheels. Your customers will thank you, because this car is so good on the highway. It handles so well. It would just add that extra touch of confidence if I knew that my car had complete full set of disc brakes. Would I still recommend this car if it's only available in petrol? And my answer to them was, the car's quality in terms of its fit, its finish, in terms of its value offering, continues to maintain irrespective of the engine in the car. I think the engine in the car simply determines how you will drive the car. If it's a petrol vehicle, you'll drive it a little differently from how you would drive a diesel vehicle. I myself haven't driven the petrol engine yet, so I can't speak to the driving dynamics vis-a-vis the engine. But if they've still built that car to perform the way this one does in terms of its sure-footedness, in terms of how solidly it is built, then I would say this should continue to remain a strong contender. It should be on your short list of cars to test drive at a bare minimum. Once you're sitting inside the car, the looks don't matter because you're inside the car. Only outsiders are looking at your car. And do you care what outsiders think? Ultimately, what you care about is the value experience, your user experience sitting inside the car. How does the car drive? How does the car feel? What is the car's maintenance cost? Is it an expensive car to maintain? I would rather, personally, focus on those metrics than on how subjectively the car looks. Also, the thing about trendy looks is they're trend, right? So they come and they go. So the Skoda Rapid Diesel DSG is a very strong city car, but is an excellent highway car. This vehicle rules when it comes to long trips on highways. Its DSG gearbox is a pleasure to use, and it's easy on the pocket overall. Looks, though being subjective, I'd say this car has sort of classic neutral looks, so won't offend anyone. And it's a no-nonsense vehicle. This is not if I had to draw a comparison, this is not a Hyundai that's chock full of features to the gills. But this is a car that's full of substance. If you like a car that will stick by you through the years without giving you any fuss and will still perform as strongly and as well as it did the day you bought it and took it out of the showroom, this is the car for you. Hi everybody, I hope you liked that recap ownership summary video. I certainly enjoyed shooting it and sharing my views and opinions with you guys through Rajesh sir. If you like the video, please hit like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon. You guys use YouTube, you know what to do.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Anytime.
Thank you. Bye-bye.